Hi folks, this is Joey O'Neill from Sound Systems Incorporated out of Myrtle Beach, and today we are at Oak Island Presbyterian Church in Oak Island, North Carolina. The church had an existing sound system. We did a few upgrades for them, but we got rid of one of the older PVRQ 32-channel mixers and installed a Behringer X32 digital console in. And the purpose of this video is just to help the volunteers and staff here at the church understand how we set the mixer up specifically for the church's needs. We went from an old analog board that had 32 channels laid straight out to this particular model that actually has set up in two different sections. Now I'm going to talk in just real simple layman terms because the church volunteers don't operate any type of audio system on their own, so what we're going to do is try to make things very simple and very understandable. The first part about this mixer as compared to the old mixer, on the old PV mixer you had 32 channels side by side. On this new mixer, the digital mixer, we have this section set up here, and what happens is we push this button over to the left, and I'm going to check my video to make sure I'm showing. Yeah, push this button right here that says CH1 through 16, which means once I push this button, I have channels 1 through 16 on the mixing console. Therefore, if I push the button right below it, it says CH 17 through 32. I push that, this now becomes channels 17 through 32. Now, the way the church is set up, we had some existing stage plates, stage left, stage right, some choir inputs. So therefore, inputs 1 through 12 all the way across the console are all of the stage inputs, and they're labeled and numbered accordingly, obviously on stage. So channels 1 through 6 currently have nothing in them. Our piano is currently plugged into channel 7. Piano vocal, an external vocal microphone is in 8. And we actually installed 2 pulpit microphones. They have a larger platform, so we have 2 MX418 supercardioids on each side of the pulpit. Channels 11 and 12 are open, and therefore 13, 14, 15, 16 are open on the first page. On the second page, however, channels 17 through 20 are our choir, left, rear. We have 4 choir mics, so they're labeled accordingly for what 4 choir microphones we have. We have channels 21, 22, 23, 24, which are currently not being used. The church has 3 wireless microphones that they call white, red, and orange. Now, you might notice this orange has given us a little bit of RF problems. I don't know if that's been going on for quite some time, but we probably need to do a little frequency change with the channel 27 here, which is the orange wireless microphone. Channel 28 is currently open. Channels 29 and 30 are CD playback, and they still have a tape deck for some backup that they'll play in channels 31 and 32. So that's the main inputs of the console, channels 1 through 16, channels 17 through 32. And just for conversation purposes, they also have auxiliaries 1 through 6, USB inputs, and then all the effects processors that are built into the console. We're not utilizing any of the auxiliary inputs at this point, just channels 1 through 16 and 17 through 32. So that is our input section. We'll get a little more into detail into a channel on that as we go. Over in this section, which is the master section, first of all, when we turn the console on purpose, the master volume will automatically go to infinity or 0 or unit or to 0. It does that on purpose. We could change it if we'd like, but I think it's safer just to keep the console like that. So once we fire the console up, we're going to bring the fader up to 0 or unity gain. And then this section becomes outputs. This lets us group certain things over here and control them with just one slider, one fader, or one button in this part of the mixing console. So for example, first button is called Group DCA 1 through 8. If I push this, then I have color coordinated the playback units with the playback units here. My CD player, left and right, and my tape decks are labeled blue. So therefore my playback units are labeled blue, and I can have a master volume here and mute and unmute my playback units. Did the same thing with the handhelds. They're colored kind of a light pink, and then we have a handheld pink section here on the auxiliary on mute switch. And then we have another section here for the choir. On the choir, we've got it labeled as green, and is a master volume for the four choir microphones that are over here to the side. We went ahead, since we have the pulpit microphone set up as two individual channels, then we take the two channels for the pulpit microphone and we have assigned them to bus 4. Some people just walked in the sanctuary, so I don't know if we can hear me or not. But that's DCA groups 1 through 8, which currently we're using 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now the next button here is called bus 1 through 8. So when I push bus 1 through 8, I've got choir monitor, floor monitor, piano monitor, a hearing impaired piece. 5 and 6 are not used, but 7 and 8 are actually recording out to the cassette deck and to the CD player. So 5 and 6 is not being used, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 are. They are color coordinated also. I'll show you how to send certain things to certain areas for the recording here in a few minutes. Bus 9 through 16 is currently not being used, and any of the matrices, we're not using any of that at any time. We're trying to keep it very simple, just for simple operation for the church. Now, let me go back to my monitors for just a second, and I apologize, people were walking through speaking, so I'm not sure how clear I was. I have independent control for 2 small JBL speakers we've installed in the choir, meaning that I can direct or send any of my channels specifically to the choir area. So if the pastor were standing at the lectern and we were seated in the choir during the service and we needed to hear his voice from the lectern microphone, we could direct his microphone only to the choir monitors. On stage, with the 12 inputs I was talking about previously, we have installed powered monitor outputs. So in the choir area, in the organ area, in the piano area, we have the capability of just coming up and plugging a standard floor wedge and sending sound back to those floor monitors. We're calling them choir, floor, and then the other one is called a piano monitor, which we have also put in, which allows us to send a preamp signal, because the church has purchased a small headphone amplifier for a hearing impaired type device that's going over to the piano area. 4 is a hearing impaired device, which is a wireless system that the church already owns. And like I said, the other 2 are recording. So we're going to get into detail for that. Let's get right down to basics. Let's talk about what we're going to do if we're going to change or edit something or do anything. I'm going to play. All right, I have a little bit of a CD player that's playing here. I don't know what's on here, but anyway, we're going to use it for a sound source. All right, I'm playing my CD player, and it's labeled in channels 29 and 30. And what I have to do with this console is, if I need to make any changes, I first of all have to select whatever channel I would like to change. So maybe CD wasn't the best choice, but I'm going to go to my CD player, turn my music up. Now, any changes I do, I have to first select the channel. Once I select the channel, anything I do up in this area of the mixing console takes place only, or affects only, that one channel. For example, if I would like to increase the gain, I hit select. I can come up here to my gain control and bring the gain up or down accordingly. I can add phantom power, which I would have to add to any type of a condenser microphone, such as a pulpit microphone, or an overhead choir microphone, or a handheld condenser microphone. Next is a low frequency cut. When I push the low frequency cut, it lets me turn this knob, which rolls off some of the bass response. You may be able to see it in the display here, that when I do this low cut, it runs across the screen, and that's what's filtering off some of the low frequencies. Where that comes in handy is if I have something that's real woofy sounding, or if I have a microphone on a wooden stage and it's rattling, or people walk across the stage and I get a lot of vibrations. Low frequency really comes in handy. It also comes in handy for the choir microphones, because usually the clarity or the sibilance or the treble sounds for the choir mic is generally what cuts through. You're not going to get a tremendous amount of bass response out of an overhead choir mic. One of the favorite settings that I use is a compressor. What a compressor does is it actually puts a ceiling on our output, or actually our input or output, however we do it. But to put it in quick terms, it just provides a ceiling that if someone were speaking at a certain level, they could talk, and once it hit that certain level, according to where the compressor was set at, it generally would not let that audio level go above that. So for example, if you're listening to someone speak on TV and your volume stays relatively the same, but the timbre or the tonality or the excitement level of their voice increases 2 or 3-fold, it just doesn't randomly get blaringly loud. What a compressor does is it acts like think about it as a governor on a golf cart. When you sit in a golf cart and you press the pedal, you take off, and it doesn't matter how hard you press the pedal, you're not going to go any faster than what the governor or the compressor is set for. On the old mixer, when you would slide a channel up and down to turn it up and down in the house system, you would have a tone control, lows, mids, highs, which would give it bass, mid-range, treble, clarity, sibilance, whatever terminology you'd like to use. But in this mixer, we have this section here, which is actually called the equalizer. And again, once I'm still controlling only this one channel that I have selected, now I can come over here and I can hit equalizer, and I can hit view, and my display will turn into my equalizer setting. At that point, I can select my highs, and if I needed to, I'm going to oversimplify things here. But if I wanted to increase or decrease the high frequencies that I select, or the mid frequencies, or take them out, or the low mid frequencies, or the bass frequencies, I can do that and actually color it to the taste that I'm trying to get. Obviously, people speak differently, music is differently, so you may have different desires to have something more clearer or brighter or more bass response. The biggest advantage, I think, on this mixer is that for the average person who volunteers to run sound on the weekends or weddings, funerals, and stuff for the church, you may see the little dancing bars across here. Well, this is a real-time analyzer, and a real-time analyzer, if you look at this screen, runs from bass all the way through the treble, from 20 hertz to 20K. This comes in very handy for people who aren't familiar with frequencies. So for example, if I were to turn something up, I'll tell you what, I'm going to purposely try to make something feedback here in a minute. I'm going to select a choir microphone. I'm going to select my choir RF. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this level control up, hopefully to a point where I get some type of ringing or feedback. I'm going to remember my gain control, and I'm going to bring my gain control up. I guess we EQ'd it so good that it's not going to feed back on us. All right, here we go. First, you have to be smarter than the machine. I'm going to turn my choir master volume up. Now I'm going to bring this up. All right, we see that. What's happening is our choir microphone is feeding back at about 800 hertz or 1K. Now I know that's in my mid-range, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make it feed back, and I'm going to hold it. And what I just did was I eliminated 400, 800 hertz, and 1K. So therefore, my choir level control, if I would have to bring it up to that level, I can get that type of level by eliminating the feedback. And the beauty of that is that the real-time analyzer shows me what frequency is ringing, so therefore that allows me to dial through and find the trouble spot and cut it or boost it if I needed to. In this case, I needed to cut it, obviously, to get rid of the feedback. So very, very handy feature. Actually, one of my favorites, because you don't have to guess at what frequencies are. Now, for purposes of here, I'm going to bring my choir microphone back down to where it was and bring my level back down and bring all that down. But that's a good hands-on experience about how to eliminate feedback or how to get more gain out of what you're trying to do. But if you have a trouble spot, it's a quick visual, and it takes all the guesswork out. Now, this next section here is called bus sends. I'm not going to go into this because there's two different ways to send sound back to the monitors. For example, I can send any one of these channels back to any location. And I can do it on this, but there's actually an easier way to show it. So I'm going to jump into that in just a second. These are just assignments, which means I want it to go to my main output, which goes out to my speaker system. And I'm not going to get into any detail about the other stuff. This is headphone levels, talkback microphones, and stuff that we can do. Now, probably the most important thing is let's talk about how to send sound back to one of the buses. Now, currently we have choir monitor, floor monitor, piano monitor, hearing impaired, not used in our recording. So let's say, for example, that our choir is singing with a soundtrack. They're going to sing with this soundtrack right here. And they're doing a Christmas cantata. And the choir may say, hey, that's great, but we can't hear the music, we can't hear the soundtrack to sing with back in our choir monitor. Well, here's how we make that happen. We always use this little section called Sends on Fader. So what we do first is we select what we would like to change. In this case, we would like to change the choir monitors. So what I do is I select the choir monitors, because like I said previously, anything you do to the mixer, you have to select whatever you wish to change. So I'm going to select my choir monitor. I'm going to push this little button beside it that says Sends on Fader. Sends on Fader means that I can send or turn up these faders, and any of that sound will go directly to our choir monitor and out for them to hear. So for example, select Sends on Fader, and I would like to turn my CD unit up going to the choir, then this is what I'm doing. Now what you're hearing is the playback now being played back through the choir monitors. You can probably hear it from here. This is not in the house system. These are for the house system when we're not on Sends on Fader. Once I get that level set the way I'd like, very important that I have to push the button that says Sends on Fader, and now I'm back to the control of the house system. So therefore, let's say that our hearing impaired device on auxiliary bus number 4 needed to have more of the pulpit microphone being. I'm going to mute the music here for now since it's so rocking music. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the hearing impaired, and I'm going to send the pulpit microphones to the hearing impaired system so that we have more going to there. So therefore I select hearing impaired, I go to Sends on Fader, and right now it's telling me what's going to the hearing impaired, which right here is nothing. Let me go to page 1, and there's our pulpit microphone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send our pulpit microphone, I'm going to turn these up to some level, which now sends over to the hearing impaired through Sends on Fader and goes over to my hearing impaired system. Let's say my hearing impaired system, I would like to send a little bit of the music that I'm playing through there. I'll go to my page where my music's at, and I'm going to turn that up, turn my music up, and it will be going out to my hearing impaired device. Now I have music going to my hearing impaired. Let's say that I wish to send a little bit of the choir microphones to my hearing impaired. I can turn up my choir mics, and it's now going to my hearing impaired device. Let's say that on my recording, I have a CD recorder over here. I'd like to find out what's going to my CD recorder. I can push select bus 8 CD recorder, make sure I'm still on Sends on Fader, and right now there's nothing going to the CD recorder, but I would probably want to have the pulpit mic going to there. I would most likely want to have a wireless microphone or two, the handhelds, and I would probably want some of the choir microphones going to the CD recorder. Now I have specifically set up something that takes care of the CD recorder. Okay, that is a general overview, but the last thing I want to cover is I'd like to tell you the easiest way I'd like to set up a mixing console with a microphone, and I don't have a microphone at this point now. Very important, and I almost forgot it myself. I'm going to hit Sends on Fader, and now we're back to normal. We're back to mixing the console just like we normally would. Let's say that I have somebody, they go down on the stage platform, and they say, hey, Joey, I'm going to take a microphone, and I'm going to plug it in microphone number 6. Okay, no problem. They're going to take a microphone, plug the cable in. I'm going to come over here to channel 6. I'm going to unmute channel 6. I like to go ahead and take the fader up to unity gain, just because I like to drive everything at unity gain if possible. And then I will have them start speaking or talking into the microphone, and when they do, first thing I'll do is I'll come over here to the gain control. I'll select it. Then I'll come over here to my gain control. I'll bring the gain control up till I get a level that I'm happy with in accordance to other levels. Then at that point, I'll come over here. If it sounds kind of a woofy or boxy or bassy or however you want to say it, I might take some of the low frequency and roll some of that off. And if I maybe need to bring out some clearness or clarity or sibilance in their voice, then at that point I could select my equalizer, and then I could go through lows, mids, and highs and choose as I needed to, and I have a visual of what that would look like. I have a little screen here. And then at that point, I would probably ask them, do they need to hear themselves in any kind of a stage monitor, choir monitor, anything like that. Excuse me. And that's just a real simple way to get things up and running. Plug into channel, unity gain, unmute it, select it, gain control first, and then any type of roll off or tone control for it. Some other nice little features of the console, of course, we can go through and we can label and color code things the way we would like. And in this particular setup, what we've done to try to make things easier for them is set up groups where they could just mute in independent type of things. All right, so just remember when we turn the console on, we're going to have a unity gain fader that's going to be down here, so we need to bring it up to whatever level we want to operate on. And that's kind of a general overview of how we've set up this mixer at this church. We're only scratching 10% of the capabilities of this. Obviously, we can save scenes, which I'm going to go through with the hands-on training with the church, which is coming up in just a few minutes. And also, I'll be able to tell them about the USB recorder out and how to save and set up scenes for specifics. All right, any questions for me? This is Joey O'Neill from Sound Systems Incorporated. I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I can be reached at 843-602-5883. Thank you.